It's no secret that media outlets screw up. We, of course, all remember this fiasco from last year.
The individual mandate has been ruled unconstitutional.
Justices have just gutted, Wolf, the centerpiece provision of the Obama health care law.
Yeah, if in fact that's the final word on the individual mandate, it could be a little bit more complicated.
We're getting conflicting information. We're getting conflicting information.
As I say, there's some confusion out there, conflicting reports coming in from inside the Supreme Court. So let's hold off on drawing any final conclusions.
We're still trying to figure this out. Be cautious with us. We're trying to do the best we can right now as we sort through it.
And we need to update our lower third, which may not be correct right now.
It may take several minutes.
As we're reading through this again, we are reading now that the entire law has been upheld.
However, the recent case of All-Star Notre Dame linebacker Manti Te'o makes us question just how easy it is for a fake story to take on a life of its own, and how quickly media jump on a story instead of doing due diligence. During the college football season, Te'o's story of overcoming personal tragedy captured the hearts and minds of Americans across the country.
In an incomprehensible 6-hour time span, Notre Dame linebacker Manti Te'o learned that both his grandmother and his girlfriend had died.
The only problem wasn't true. After numerous outlets reported for months that Te'o suffered the crushing loss of his girlfriend, Lanai Kekua, to cancer, sports blog Deadspin uncovered not everything was as it seemed, and no such person ever existed. Media outlets like ESPN never questioned Te'o's story, even when there were flashing caution lights. There was no obituary for the girlfriend, no one ever sought quotes from her family, and there was no record of her at Stanford University, where Kekua supposedly went to school. Most journalists were more interested in puff pieces than actually digging into more fascinating story beneath the surface. Another media dispute, England's The Sunday Times has stopped accepting freelance pictures from the war zone in Syria. When freelance war photographer Rick Feindler submitted pictures from his most recent trip, he was told that the newspaper no longer accepts photographs from freelancers in the dangerous region. While the newspaper thought Feindler had some exceptional work, the Foreign Desk said it had a policy in place not to take work from Syria because the dangers of operating there are too great. Respected journalist Mary Colvin was killed in Syria while reporting for the Sunday Times. Feindler said that it should be an individual's choice whether or not to enter the war-torn region, and the risk would be worth it if it led to illuminating the conflict in Syria to the rest of the world. And another big fumble, the New York Times dragging its feet in covering Bradley Manning's pretrial hearings.
I also want to thank the journalists who've been covering the Bradley Manning case. And one name you won't hear on that list, the New York Times. What you see there is journalists covering a trial that is very difficult to cover. And you don't see the major media covering that trial.
Ratner wasn't the only one who felt that way. After being repeatedly criticized by people inside and outside the press, the New York Times' own public editor, Margaret Sullivan, expressed her sense of shared disappointment at the missed opportunity, saying, quote, "Beyond the story itself, the Times, which considers itself the paper of record, had an obligation to be there, to bear witness, because in a very real sense, Private Manning was one of its most important sources of the past decade." Shortly thereafter, the Times did send a reporter to cover the testimony of Bradley Manning. Reporting from Washington, Adriana Ocero, RT.